First of all, it's been a very strange year, and I'm acutely aware how COVID has impacted both the community and businesses on the peninsula. But I'm also very aware of how resilient and adaptable the community and businesses have been over the last 9 months. I don't think there's any person or family or parish or community or business, big or small, that hasn't felt the effect of COVID. I mean, if you told me this time last year that we'd be hosting our end of year event over a Zoom call, I would have said absolutely not, no way, it's never going to work. But yet here we are, and we have 51 attendees on the call at the moment, which is fantastic. So before I start, I just wanted to take a moment to pass our sincere condolences on to Rita Baker and the Baker family for the passing of Sean earlier in the year. Sean was one of our solar PV trial participants, so we just wanted to extend our sympathies to Rita and the family, and also to extend our sympathies to Michael Spillane and the Spillane family. And Michael was a powerhouse of a man, and he was with us from day one at our first meeting on the peninsula, and he attended every single event that we had, even when it was challenging to do so. So our deepest sympathies to the Spillane family, and indeed everybody who has lost somebody over the last 12 months. Ordesh de Gareva Anonymika Dealish. Okay, so Max, if you don't mind pulling up the first slide, and we'll just go through the sequence of events for tonight. So yeah, and if we just go on to the agenda. So first up, we will have Fergal Egan, and Fergal Egan replaced John Fitzgerald as project manager for the Dingle Project earlier in the year. And Fergal's going to go through what has been delivered within the project this year, the impact that COVID has had on the project, and also what our focus will be for 2021. Now, I didn't want to tell anybody that he was a dub, but his accent is going to give him away, so all I will say is be kind. And then after Fergal has completed his presentation, we're going to have a chat with two of the community members who are working with us on our project. And first up, we have Carol Leahy, and Carol is one of our project ambassadors. And Carol is going to walk us through and maybe share some of her experiences with the retrofit that she's undergone in the last 12 months. And then we'll talk to Alan Smith, and Alan is one of our solar PV trial participants, and he's going to share some of his experiences around the solar PV. Then at about 8:30, we're going to open up the webinar, and what I would ask you to do, if you have any questions or comments, you will see a Q&A function on your screen. So if you touch it or click on it, it will open a chat box, and then you can pop your comments and questions in there, and Kieran Ganey will be moderating the questions, and we'll try and get through as many as we can on the call. And if we don't get to all of them, then I'll be coming back to people within the next few days to address any of the outstanding questions. And then finally, we have Claire Duffy, who is our Network Development and Electrification Manager. And Claire was very keen to connect with the community tonight. So we're just going to hear a few words from Claire at around 8:45. And then, and I'm very excited about this, which is a bit sad, but that's what the Dingle Project does to you. We have a draw for a domestic technical assessment. So what this basically means is we'll have an engineer come out and do an audit on your home, an energy audit on your home, and they'll provide a report that will make recommendations on what you can do to make your home more energy efficient. And we'll also have a draw for somebody to have the experience of driving an electrical vehicle for a month next year. So that's the sequence of events. We'll finish up before 9, and I will hand over to Fergal now and not delay. Fergal.
Grant, thanks Claire. So Max, you might move on the slide deck there. And once more. So how you doing everybody? As Claire mentioned, Fergal Egan is my name, and I joined the project around March time, which was an interesting time to join when COVID was actually hitting Ireland fairly bad. So as yet, I haven't had an opportunity to get down to Dingle, but I'm looking forward to doing that hopefully early in the new year. So just a quick snapshot of some of the activities throughout the year. And 2020 was actually a very busy year for the project. And I'll only be able to highlight a few of the things in the next couple of minutes. But at the network resilience end of things, Cheryl Carmody, who you may have heard recently on Radio Kerry, she's been leading a lot of really interesting work there. She led an exercise to map down to a low voltage level the network around Dingle. And the learnings we got from that are going to influence how ESB Networks maps to that level, the network right across Ireland over the next number of years. So a very successful piece of work. But she's also been working with the network technicians out of the Tralee office to install lots of different devices on the network, which will hopefully make the network much more resilient and will improve the quality of supply in the area. For example, she's installed fault passage indicators, which help us to pinpoint where faults have occurred, when they occur, so to enable us to actually restore power quicker. There was lots of other devices as well installed and upgraded on the network, which will improve the quality of supply. And then in the whole ICT end of things, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that Kieran Geeney is leading. And a lot of it is to do with the purchasing of new technologies. And anywhere where you're buying new technologies now, they include an element of smarts in them. And once you're buying something that's smart, within ESB, we have to go through a very challenging process to make sure that the cybersecurity controls and everything like this are up to scratch, and that we can protect people's data and protect the assets where we're installing the devices. So Kieran has been leading a lot of work in that whole area, and you can see the little graphic there of the different technologies that will be deployed. So there's lots of great stuff going on. The EV chargers, we know will be starting to install them in the next number of weeks, and a lot of the work that Kieran has done has helped us actually get to where we are today. Kieran was also instrumental in leading our efforts to trial peer-to-peer energy on the peninsula, but unfortunately we weren't able to get an electricity supplier partner to work with us on that, so we've had to not proceed with that trial as part of our Dingle project. And then you're all well aware of the work that Claire does, keeping everybody motivated and raising the whole profile of the active energy citizen across the peninsula. And Claire has been doing great work this year as well, particularly some of the challenges when we couldn't run some of our face-to-face information evenings. Claire kind of took the initiative to move some of these things online, and working with Radio Kerry, who are really thankful for, to help kind of promote some of the messages, share information around solar PV, air source heat pumps, the whole resilience of our network as well. And I suppose she also worked to make sure that the energy mentors proceeded through the training course that they were on. And there's now a number of people on the peninsula who have sufficient knowledge about the different low carbon technologies which we're rolling out to be able to answer a lot of the questions that people across the peninsula will have. So we'll be asking you to keep talking to these people as well. So lots of really good work there. And unfortunately, while we tried to get an award for the project, the International Edison Electric Institute considered our application. And while there's great interest in what we're doing, our project was probably a little bit early for them to consider us. But again, it's really good. And what we're actually doing down in Dingle is of interest, not just in Ireland, but further on beyond that. So Max, you might go on to the next slide. So just a little bit about COVID-19, and I suppose there were some immediate impacts of COVID-19 when it struck. As I mentioned, a lot of the information events that we would have held in person as such, we had to switch them online. And if you haven't had a chance of listening to some of the interviews there, they're actually on the Radio Kerry website. But if you think to the previous year, where there was lots of opportunities, lots of events on the peninsula, and ESB Networks would have had a good presence at those, where we would have had a stall and been trying to share our message about kind of the low carbon transition. We didn't actually have the opportunity to do that this year. And kind of other challenges as well. For example, the work that our network technicians were doing. Obviously, there were new COVID safety practices introduced as part of the work that those guys do. So that actually had two impacts. One, there was a bit of a slowdown in terms of some of the rollout and the upgrading of technologies on the network, but also there was a reprioritization of projects across ESB networks, and it meant that for a number of months the priority was really on maintaining supply rather than on kind of focusing on innovative projects and moving them forward out there. If you go on to the next slide as well, please. But I suppose the biggest impact to ESB networks only kind of came to light around the middle of the year. And you probably saw some of the headlines in the newspapers around the time when ESB was posting its half-yearly results. And I suppose at that stage, the impact of COVID-19 on the available finances for ESB became a little bit clearer. And for ESB networks, that had a similar impact. So unfortunately, what we had to do within the business was reprioritize some of our activities throughout the second half of the year. And that meant that for some projects, and Dingle included, basically didn't have as much money as we had intended to spend to progress some of the activities at the pace that we wanted. So we had to replan and reprioritize activities and push some things from 2020 out into 2021. For example, the EV trial, which we had intended launching around last September, we've had to actually push that out, and that'll be kicking off towards the end of January. So unfortunately, that was the impact. Wasn't a huge amount we could do about it, but we've had to replan, and we think we're in a good position for 2021 to really move things forward. So if you go on to the next slide again, please. So as I mentioned, 2021 will be a really exciting year for the project. The EV trial, we're planning to kick that off before the end of January. And for those people that were lucky enough to have been selected for that trial, there's efforts underway, and maybe you've already been contacted by KN Circe to do a visit to your property to figure out where the EV charge point is going to be installed, and to understand how the wiring, how the connections are going to be brought to the EV charging location. So if they haven't visited yet, they'll be doing so before Christmas, but we're really preparing for that. Our flexibility trial will be kicking off around the end of March, the end of February, start of March. And really what that's about is for those people that have been, that have EV chargers, or that have air source heat pumps, or may have batteries installed over the coming months. What we want to do is figure out, is there a way to control and optimize those technologies so that they don't, so that not that your comfort or your lifestyle is affected in any way, but we can operate them in a way so as to minimize their impact on the electricity network. And it could be simple things like changing the timing that you might be able to charge the vehicle at, so that it'll still be charged in the morning, but rather than you charging it from 7 o'clock in the evening to 10 o'clock in the evening or something like that, it might be charged at later time or during the middle of the night. So we're going to actually provide a bit of information early in the new year to the people that will be participating on that trial, and help you to understand actually what's ahead. But it should be a very enjoyable experience, and lots of interesting information will be shared. Other work that we have to do as well through 2021 will actually be to assess whether the different devices that we're rolling out on the network, to see, are they actually doing what we intended? So, for example, as I mentioned earlier on, the fault passage indicator devices, will they help us to actually speed up fault finding on the network and restoration of power where those situations occur? And then, of course, there's lots of work that we're going to be doing and collaborating with the MARI team, the MARI research team, to understand which approaches work best in terms of trying to motivate or activate the active energy citizen. So we'll be working with everybody who's participating on the trials, but also trying to understand the mood wider across the peninsula in terms of whether people, whether the visibility of technologies, and it could be, for example, the EVs that will be rolled out, whether things like that are actually raising people's interest and helping to motivate people to consider a low energy lifestyle into the future. So lots and lots of things that we'll be doing in 2021. 2021 will be the make or break year for the Dingle Project, and we're positive that it's going to make it. So if you just go on to the next slide. So of course, collaboration is key for us. ESB networks can't do this on our own. And we all know that working together makes things easier. So whether you're a Dingle ambassador, a trial participant, or whether you're any of the agencies that we work with, or the media organizations, or the people that are behind the whole Dingle 2030 initiative, there's so much collaboration that we're going to rely on over the next year to help make this a success. And we'd ask you to start talking among yourselves and sharing your stories and really communicating how the whole engagement is happening throughout 2021, because the more people talk about it, the more people are going to get excited about what we're doing. So I think if you just move on again, I might only have one more slide. So there's been lots of learnings to date in terms of how we're activating the energy citizen and the information that we're sharing. And the thing is, people actually want information. They want to learn what it might mean for the future for them. And we're actually seeing lots of people that are actually coming to us looking for this information. And as I mentioned earlier on, a lot of the success of the project will be down to how people share what they know and their experiences. So whether you're actively involved in a trial, or whether you're just listening to a podcast on the radio or reading an article in the paper or whatever, just it'd be great to get the energy in the community and get people talking more and more about what's going on. So that's about it in terms of, I think the next slide doesn't really have anything on it. It's just really a thank you to everybody that's been involved in the project to date. So whether you're people on the ESB team working out of the office in Tralee who are out there on the network putting the devices up, whether you're the ambassadors that have worked with us to date, or whether you're some of the people who are going to participate in the trials going forward who are helping us getting our message out there, whether it's Deirdre in the hub, whether it's the people in the Dingle 2030 initiative, whether it's anybody in the local media. We really want to thank you for all your help throughout 2020, which has been quite a challenging year for everybody. And we're looking forward to a really energized 2021. So thanks very much, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Very much, Fergal. Back. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much, Fergal. That was really interesting, and it's good to see. I think for me personally, when COVID hit back in March, I was like going, oh my God, what can we do? There's nothing we can do. But we talk a lot about behaviour change within our own project. But I think even outside of what we're doing, there's been massive behaviour change over the last 9 months as well. So, yeah. So next up, we have Carol Leahy. And Carol is one of our Dingle Project ambassadors. And hi, Carol.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
And thanks very much for helping us out this evening. And I think I was really interested. I really wanted to, I guess, have you on this particular webinar because you've recently just come through a retrofit, and I thought it would be really good for people just to hear your experience, you know, of the last couple of months and what was involved. So if you don't mind, first of all, for those people who don't know you on the call, which there's probably only a few, if any, do you mind giving a little bit of a background to yourself and to your family and to your home and I suppose your journey to date within the project?
Well, hi to everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I live just outside Ballyferriter. My husband Sean and myself have 6 daughters, and our house was built in about 1992, and it was built to specification at the time, which was just really, it was 2-inch aeroboard into a 4-inch cavity. We had double glazed windows, but it always proved to be cold enough and hard to heat. So about 1998, we put 4-inch insulation into the ceiling joists. It helped a bit, but not much. So again, in about 2000, we slabbed upstairs, we insulated the roof and the ceilings and slabbed it. And again, in 2005, we pumped a cavity. But it was never really warm. And if it was taking an awful lot of heating or solid fuel heating as a backup. Yeah. So basically that's the history to the house. And then Claire came along. So yeah, we were very, very lucky to qualify for the ESB Networks project, and we were delighted. And it all began in October of 2019. So I suppose we moved out of the house. We encountered a couple of problems. One being absolutely nothing to do with it. It was the roof. It was our own problem. But it meant the job went on a bit longer. But anyway, the first thing that was installed was the PV panels on the roof, and it was absolutely effortless, so it was. In fact, you wouldn't even know they were installed. It was no bother, and it didn't put in on us in any way whatsoever. It was great. After that, they came in to do a complete retrofit, and they put in the air source heat pump, a new air filtration scheme, brand new windows went in. The outside of the house was insulated. The inside was insulated between the rafters, and an insulated slab was put on outside of that. Then they double cozy wrapped all the alcoves, and there was new Velux windows put in upstairs. Also, other things like the water tanks were insulated and bits and pieces like that. So all in all, it was a massive, massive job there.
Yeah. And I know that it's been a bit of a journey as well. And I suppose just for anybody listening in, like a retrofit, some retrofits go great and they all go to plan. And in Carol's situation, things didn't really go to plan for a whole load of reasons. And I guess it's important for people to understand that when you are going at, I guess, a house like Carol's, that there are unforeseens, and then you have to make decisions around how you're going to manage them. You have weather at play, you've got time of year at play. I think we had delays in the grant processing as well with you, Carol. But just in terms, if we talk a little bit about your air source heat pump, like how are you finding your air source heat pump now I know we've had to bring your house up to a certain BR. I think it's a BR, it's B++, is it B2, is it? I think that's what it is at the minute.
I'm actually not sure, Claire, to be honest. I thought it was higher than that, but anyway. Yeah, the house is so cozy. It's constantly warm. We constantly have hot water. There's no more rows over immersions and electric showers. It's great. And there hasn't been a single lump of coal burned since October, actually I'd say September 2019.
Okay.
So we were just even figuring it out today. No one was talking tonight, and we reckon just from September that definitely we have saved at least 15 bags of coal from September just until now.
Yeah. And I know that as well, Carol, you were very slow about losing your fire as well, because the fire was that the heart of the home, but you put in a stove.
Yes, we put in a stove to specification, and all we burn in that now are small pieces of timber, because if we burn anything more than that, the place is too hot.
Okay.
So we can sit comfortably in front of the stove with a couple of blocks of timber in it for the night, and it's just so cozy, so warm, and everything is good.
And Carol, are you seeing a reduction in your energy bills, or is it too early to call that yet?
It's a little bit too early to call that yet, because I think what happened was our bills may have reduced when we were out of the house, and then we were on a reduced rate for a while, and then we ended up with we had to make an overpayment in order to kind of peter out the amount of it. So we haven't established yet exactly what our electricity usage is. Okay. But I mean, we're now very conscious. We're a lot more conscious now than we were about, say, the washing machine and the dryer and the dishwasher and all that stuff. And we are more aware of the electricity usage. As I said to somebody during the summer, I said, as soon as the sun comes out, I put in a load of washing. Yeah. Because of the PV panels, and we haven't yet got the battery to store, but we're still aware of how, we're getting more aware of how to use it.
Okay.
And again, we have constant warm water, which is, we've never had that before. And there was always rows over the immersion.
Okay. So you have your retrofit done, you have your air source heat pump, you have your solar PVs, and your electric car is coming in January, and then you'll have your battery management system March, April next year. And I guess that will be like one of the things that we're looking at, and Fergal alluded to it earlier, is that we're looking to I suppose test the network for the home of the future, to make sure that we're able to cater for the increase in the electrification of heat and transport. And I think, Carol, once you have that in, then that will be what we expect the home of the future to look like moving into 2025 up to 2030, if we have to, I suppose, achieve the targets laid out by the government for 2030. And in terms of your own behaviour, you touched on there that the solar PVs, when you're generating, you go in and you turn on your washing machine. Like, are the kids, you've got 6 girls, like, are you seeing any behaviour changes with them, or?
Well, they haven't started turning on the washing machine any more frequently anyway, Claire, that's for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they are aware of it. I mean, they know themselves the changes in the house and how much warmer it is. And upstairs is so cozy now. Actually, one of them said to me today, said, you know, Mom, if we light a candle, it actually tops up the heating on the room. It's so insulated up there.
Great, great. So the big question is, Carol, was it worth it?
I had reservations throughout the year, and I thought long and hard about it at times. But I have to say, honestly, now that we have come out the other side, and that we're probably, you know, maybe 2 months the other side, as regards back in the house and it's cozy and everything. Oh, every day I come into the house and feel the heat, I say, oh my God, thank God for the ESB Networks project.
Okay. Well, look, listen, thanks very much for that. And look, if anybody has any questions on the retrofits, they can pop them into the Q&A box. Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Carol. And
you're welcome, Claire. Thank you for everything.
And we'll move on to Alan Smith now. And Alan is one of our solar PV trial participants. So, Alan, would you mind just sharing a bit about yourself and maybe walk us through your experience with the solar PVs to date?
Yeah, no problem. We have a very traditional, old style, solid wall farmhouse, and that we've renovated over the last 5 years. And we had the solar PVs installed, which took probably about a day, a slight gap with the electrician coming in, but all in all, it probably over the length of a whole day it took to install, and was up and running without any problems whatsoever. Again, managed to route the cable through the house in a way that it's not, you can't see anything, it's all routed in, so no sign of anything, and no mess, no visible mess anyway. And we're probably not an ideal location in terms of the aspect of the house, because we've got a mountain towards the back. We're right under Mount Brandon, and so the sun comes up late and the roof's facing southwest. But even saying that, we're still producing quite a good amount of electricity throughout the year. Looking at what we are producing in terms of energy, I've worked out how much electricity we were using before we had them, so I knew how many kilowatts we were using on average per week, and I reckon so far we about a third of our energy a year is provided by the solar panels. Yes. So quite a reduction in energy that we're buying off the grid. There's just two of us in the house. We have changed our habits as well. We do, you know, a bit like Carol was saying, you know, the sun comes out, the dishwasher goes on, or the washing goes on, or you're switching things off. You think, I don't need that on, that doesn't need to be on. And so more energy is going into other things that are running in the house. When we're buying, we've recently bought a new tumble dryer, and that was an air source heat pump tumble dryer, so using about a third of the electricity of an old tumble dryer. And again, if we use that, if we need to put it on, we try and do it during daylight hours. So again, the panels are providing some of the energy to run that. On top of now we've got the panels, we are looking to increase things we can do with the energy, that's rather than it say spilling over to the grid when we're not using very much energy in the house. So we're looking to add into the system a smart immersion switch, where any excess energy that's not being used in the house will be diverted into the hot water tank, and then when that is topped up, only then will it spill back out onto the grid. So we're hoping in the next 12 months, we'll probably have that fitted up and running as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, one of the things that I will say about you, Alan, is that you're a very active energy citizen, in that you have your solar PVs, and like, and just from listening to your experience and talking with you over the last couple of months, like, if you get solar PVs and if you put them on the side of your roof, and if you forget about them, you're not going to maximize, I suppose, the value of them. Like, you have to think about your behavior.
Yeah.
You do have to think about when you put on your appliances, and when not to put on your appliances. And as you say, you're thinking now about, you know, what happens with the spill, and, you know, you're thinking about that smart immersion, and the fact that you're also thinking about other energy efficient appliances as well. I think once, it seems like once an individual or a family get one technology and they start engaging with it, it's like, well, what's the next step? And that seems, you seem to be on a journey.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have had one small glitch with the system, that there was a faulty cable that was linking all the panels back into the house, but that's been sorted out. And that's one thing I would say for anybody out there who is considering installing solar. I would go, I'd seek out a local supplier that has the knowledge of your area, who is easily contactable, and you know, and work with them, so that you do get, you build up a rapport, because obviously it's not something that you're going to do every year. You know, it is a big investment.
Yes.
And so you have to think about the practicalities of that, and, you know, the lifespan of it. You know, you're looking at a 25-year lifespan, so you have to think, you know, you need to think ahead. If something did go wrong in the future, who am I going to get to service it? Who am I going to get to fix it? But, you know, 99.9% of the time it's up there and working, and, you know, there's no moving parts on it. So there is very little to go wrong, you know. So the setup is quite straightforward. I was asked about what I thought would help encourage other people to take up, so, you know, fitting PV panels. And I was thinking that, you know, maybe it needs to come from the government, in that they start to offer people, you know, low interest loans over a long period to encourage people to take up, because it is quite a big investment if you're retrofitting. You know, if you're building from scratch, probably going to easily get grants and money back and things like that. But if you're doing it to an older property like ours, I think to incentivize people, maybe low cost loans. Also, I think if something like the Dingle Project was rolled out across the country, so there was maybe a mini project in every county in the country, I think that'd be a great idea, because you'd have so many more ambassadors, so many more participants. So people could contact those people and say, well, how did it go for you? How did it work? Well, you know, not just solar, but like Carol's experience with complete retrofitting, you know. So it sparks off everybody. I mean, the Dingle Project is great, and I think it's a brilliant initiative. But if there was more mini projects rolled out across, maybe one in each county, it would really, I think, inspire people to take an interest and get involved.
Okay, thank you for that, Alan. And yeah, look, lovely learnings there coming out of that, and advice. I guess one of the things that I will say, just from my own personal experience, kind of having coming into this, not being an engineer or an expert in any of the renewable energy technologies, it is a journey. Everybody's learning. I think the time is right to start making the change to becoming what we call active energy citizens, and we all have to do our bit to help achieve those targets in the CO2 emissions for 2030. So thank you both. If anybody, and I'm just going to mention this here, the SEAI website, www.seai.ie, is really good for going through the technologies and explaining what they are, the renewable technologies, and what grant funding you're entitled to. So if anybody's interested in looking at retrofits or solar PVs or heat pumps, that's a good place to start. And we also have, Fergal mentioned our energy mentors earlier on in the call. We've got 10 fantastic energy mentors now on the peninsula, and they are a wealth of knowledge. And we'll have a technical assessor as well shortly. So, you know, lots of information available. And we have our trial participants. So, like, you know, we've got people like Alan, people like Carol, and we've four other ambassadors as well who are more than happy to share as well some of their experiences that are coming out of the project. So, okay, well, Kieran, if we'll take a couple of minutes then just to maybe, I don't know if there's, I think I see a few questions coming in.
There is.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, we'll run through a few of them. There's a number on the retrofits and a few around some heat pumps and some solar PV. So we might start with the retrofits first, and I'll ask you, Claire, maybe if you can address this one. So one of the questions was the sort of retrofit that and heat pump installation that was carried out at Carol's house. What would the estimated cost of that be? And a kind of a follow-on question then was some other people have asked for some more information on the retrofit process.
Okay, so a retrofit can cost anything from 40,000 up. The average retrofit for a house is between 40 and 70,000. But obviously, if you've a bigger house, an older house, the more work that it needs, the more money it's going to cost. So, like for a more challenging retrofit, you're probably looking at about 100 grand. But there are government grants there, SEAI grants there to I suppose help with the payment on that. But the process, like if you're serious about looking at a retrofit, the first thing I would suggest is do your homework first to make sure you understand what's involved in a retrofit. I would also recommend to get an energy assessment done on your home. I know SEAI won't approve any grant funding unless you have a formal domestic retrofit done. So get a technical assessor in, and what they will do is they'll do a complete audit of your home and produce a report that will outline a number of different recommendations. And depending on what you need in terms of insulation, there's loads of different types of insulation you're looking. You can look at your roof and the walls, internal, external, cavities, windows, doors. So depending, you can't really give an average figure. You'd have to go and look at the house and get somebody in to make the recommendations. And you have to bring your house up to a BE or 2 for an air source heat pump to work. So my advice is go to SEAI first, do your homework, and then maybe look at getting a technical assessment done on your home. And there are lots of agencies around the country that can help with that. We worked with Tipperary Energy Agency. I understand there's an agency here in Kerry who do assessments. So I would advise doing that first.
Perfect, thanks, Claire. A question now for Fergal. So a comment came in, well done on the progress, and great to hear Carol's story. The findings of the retrofit experience and the hidden surprises are realities which so many households in Ireland will realise. The question is, how could this information be best distributed? Is there a way to feed it back to the authorities and the agencies like SEAI?
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. And yeah, what we would hope to do is to share as much information in terms of our learnings over the duration of the project and engage as many stakeholders as possible on that. Like as the project proceeds, we'll get a lot more learnings, and we'll have a number of outreach activities where we'll try to share what we've learned with as many stakeholders as possible. So but the SEAI also have other initiatives ongoing themselves where they're providing funding for lots and lots of different technologies and for retrofits. So they're obviously collecting learnings from their experiences as well. So we're happy to share with the SEAI. I'm sure they can put our learnings together with their own learnings, and see what that means in terms of changes to the way different technology rollouts are promoted and supported over time. But yeah, absolutely, we're happy to share our learnings with all stakeholders that are interested.
Yeah. A question came in that someone has a ground source heat pump installed in West Kerry for the last 15 years, and it runs mostly at night as they have underfloor heating, and they're wondering if EV charging and heat pump can run at the same time. I might take that one myself. So depending on the size and rating of the heat pump, basically a lot of chargers these days can monitor the overall energy usage of the home and can adjust the charging rate to basically to be in alignment with whatever the connection size you have or main fuse on your property. So you can charge your car and have your heat pump run at the same time. Your EV charger will automatically throttle back as required. Another question then in relation to the retrofits, specifically Carol's there, was the windows were previously double glazed. What were they replaced with? And can you measure the improvement? Or maybe Carol might have a comment. Can you actually feel the difference?
Sorry, Kieran, I was just unmuting. Yes, we can definitely feel the difference. For example, our porch, just one example in the house, for some reason that was constantly cold. There's no heat, there was never heating in it, obviously, and there's no heating in it now, but the windows have been replaced with whatever specification, and it's constantly warm in the porch now. We never had a warm porch before. In fact, it was really damp. It had gone a bit mildewy and moldy, and it's all perfect now, all done up, and no more mold, no more wet, no more damp. It's great.
Cool.
But we did have a little extension out the back in which we put in a treble glazed window, and we had sealed around them at the time when they were going in. They weren't replaced, but I feel the windows that went in are every bit, there's absolutely no draft anywhere, which is great.
Thank you, Carol. A question for Fergal. Fergal, you mentioned a problem with the proposed peer-to-peer element of the project. Can you go into any more detail on this? The person understands that the current electricity system isn't flexible enough to cope as both demand for electricity and domestic energy production evolves, including, for example, heat pumps and electric vehicles. The research on peer-to-peer seems essential to help understand how to find that balance.
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. And I suppose the difficulty we had with our peer-to-peer trial is that we're an electricity networks business, and we needed to partner with an electricity supplier to understand lots of things to do with peer-to-peer and peer-to-peer trading, incentivization for people to keep involved in the peer-to-peer trading scheme. Unfortunately, we went out to try and get a partner to participate with us on this, and we weren't successful. And lots of reasons for that that the suppliers had, which I won't get into tonight on the call. We will be publishing a report on our peer-to-peer efforts before the end of the year, and that'll be on the ESB Networks website, so people can read all about it there. In terms of whether the network can support solar PV and heat pumps, I think I might have misheard you, Kieran, on that. I suppose part of what we're going to try and do over the remaining period of the project is to trial the operation and the optimization of these different technologies to see exactly what is possible and what the impact on the electricity network is for premises which have a number of these technologies. And we're trying to see whether we can optimize them to give the best value to the customer, but also to understand what the impacts are wider than that. So there will be lots of learning. So whoever asked that question, keep watching and keep listening to our information sharing events over the next number of months, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions.
Yep.
Kieran, might I just come in there on the future piece, perhaps, just on the electrification? So just people might be interested to know that ESB Networks, we do have quite a hefty plan around reinforcing the low voltage network in particular to support what's coming down the track for electric cars and electric heating, heat pumps, that type of thing, and also to cater for the expected increase in PV and micro generation. And so we've got quite ambitious plans over the next 5 years to invest in that. And that's investing in a conventional way, but also looking at what we call new smarter solutions. So using new technologies to try to see, can we put these solutions in quicker, perhaps, than some of the conventional reinforcement, or in a more economical way. So projects like Dingle are feeding into the sort of the smart toolbox or the toolkit that we're going to have available to us as we roll this low voltage network readiness across Ireland. And we're doing a lot around things like data analytics and other things to try to better forecast where we think we're going to start to see the uptake of electric cars and heat pumps, and making sure that we're in there monitoring that network, being able to identify when it's going to start to need that reinforcement. So we do have capacity within the low voltage network at the moment. It's just when you look at the scale that's required out to 2030 with nearly 1 million electric cars, I think it's about 960,000 and about 600,000 heat pumps. When you get to that sort of scale, that's why we need to start preparing and reinforcing the network now.
Thanks, Claire. We have a lot of questions. I'm just going to take 2 more, and then we'll move on. But we'll take all the questions away, and between myself, Claire, Fergal, and the project team, we'll respond to everyone over the coming few days. 2 more questions. One for Claire McElligott. Are there going to be more public EV chargers installed on the peninsula?
Well, under our project, we're not looking at any public charging, but I do know from speaking to Deirdre Devilish, who we work very closely with here in the hub, there is a body of work being undertaken by Kerry County Council, and at the moment we're waiting for somebody to be nominated to take ownership for the electrification of transport within the county. And as soon as that person is nominated, then they will have responsibility for looking at, as was the public charging infrastructure across the county. So not within ESB Networks Dingle Project, but there is a body of work being undertaken by Kerry County Council to look at public charging.
Thanks, Claire. And the last question then, and then we'll move on. Is there any ambition to get EV car batteries to provide stored electricity back into the house during daytime? And Fergal, I'll pass this last question to you, and then we'll move on.
How kind are you, Kieran? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How kind are you for passing that one on to me?
No worries.
Just give it to me again there.
Is there an ambition to get the EV battery to provide stored energy back into the house? So basically, are we going to be trialing a vehicle to grid services?
Yeah, so as part of the project, the people that get the 5 Nissan Leafs, they will have a vehicle to grid charger installed. So we definitely will be trialing to see at times, technically, is it possible, and we know that it is, to get the electricity from the battery into the house, but also then to figure out, as part of the optimization of the technologies together, whether it's cost effective to do that, and in what circumstances or instances it might be required. So can vehicle to grid provide support in particular situations to support the network if that's actually needed? So definitely we'll be trialing that, and we'll be sharing the learnings with whoever's interested.
Perfect. Thanks, Fergal. Okay, we might move on now then to Claire Duffy to give some closing remarks, and then we will have the draw for the technical assessment and the EV for a month then following that.
Thanks, Kieran. So I won't keep you too long. I think we've had an interesting discussion this evening, and it's great to see all the questions that are coming in. And as Kieran said, the team will take them away and make sure we look to get answers back to everyone. From our side, I suppose I just wanted to thank you for your continued support on this project. For us, it is one of the flagship innovation projects that we have. But it's interesting to see that, we're being approached by different groups, different policymakers, and different communities, particularly through the SAI and some of their work there around what sort of learnings we're getting. And even in the last 2 weeks, so last week we would have hosted an event for industry participants around, particularly around Dingle and what we seem to be doing around trying to encourage active energy citizens. And as Fergal has pointed out, next year, 2021, is really going to be the year where we start to see all the results coming in. Equipment will have been installed for a certain period of time. We'll have the data to be able to start to analyse and see, what is happening on the system, how are people's behaviours changing, and is it impacting the network, and where where solutions are viable. And very much we're seeing that policymakers and others, local authorities in particular, are looking to see, they're very interested in those learnings. So for us, I suppose, Dingle, what we're hoping is that it will have that sort of ripple effect that will get the conversation going, inform policy. There's been talk tonight about what else might be needed to put in place. It's very expensive for some people to be able to do a full retrofit, for example. So how do we get people into a position where they feel comfortable about making those kinds of investments? And we're hearing from some of the policymakers and some of the finance and banks, credit unions, about this talk about building back better now after COVID, building back better and green. And so, whether there will be initiatives in place to support that. But for us, I suppose I just want to say the Dingle Project is going to be very important, we feel, and being able to provide evidence of how some of these new technologies can be used that will help and inform us design the future network, future design, to make sure we can cater for the requirements now of future customers and future consumers. And I think even like this week, so we had a session this week with a number of industry stakeholders, and the question was asked of networks, how are you going to get Ireland mobilised, and get all these active energy citizens? And so we went back and said, well, actually, it's not just us. It's going to be society. It's much broader than one organisation. We're going to have to build sort of coalitions of the willing, so to speak, and evidence and results from the likes of the Dingle Project will be used to inform approaches in all parts of the country. Certainly that's what we're hoping for. And we have, the Minister has requested, actually just yesterday, the Minister had requested, Minister Ryan, the Energy Minister, a meeting with us in early January to talk through some of the projects that we have, including Dingle, because he's trying to get a sense of what's potentially achievable and what we need to be exploring in the future. So I just wanted to share that with you, because I just, sometimes I think when you're involved in the project and the heads down and you're looking at all of the results and getting everything installed, it's sometimes easy to forget that actually this project really, we hope, will have national relevance as Ireland starts to move towards achieving its goals for 2030. So Támuid go go crua live agus Támuid inta buair go bhfuil seo bheith Oberlin agus a Codulin agus Támuid go crua fanyan síl bhógas carbon agus níl marna agam a just go maithe gut agus tasú agam go mé nálog sanna díomh go léir agus slán go fáil slán go dín bhlíonn seo thugann agus tasú agam go mé muid slán sáilte as COVID agus sinné ihawaii go maigat.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much. Okay. That's great. So we will, just before we wrap up, and we're on time, Kieran, we're going to do the virtual draw now for the technical assessment and also the EV trial for a month. So Kieran has called up our virtual hat.
Yeah, so
and what we're going to do is
we have
everybody...
103 people in it, so everyone who was registered at by 7:30 this evening is entered in. Which one will we go with first, Claire?
We'll go with the technical assessment first. Now, obviously, terms and conditions will apply, but I'll be in contact with the individuals before Friday just to confirm eligibility. So.
Okay. Okay. So 1 to 103.
64. Number 64 is
Brian
Keane. Okay, Brian, you've just got yourself a technical assessment for your home. And the next number is
77. Who is
Gloria
Gloria
Callanan.
Callanan.
Okay, well look, what we'll do is we have email addresses here, so I will be in contact with both Gloria and Brian over the next couple of days. We'll confirm eligibility, and yeah, so that's it. So look, just a final few words then from myself. I would just like to thank everybody for their continued support. It's great to be part of the journey. It's great to be part of the transition, and hopefully we'll get to see you in person next year once it's safe to do so. So wishing everybody a very happy and safe Christmas and the very best for 2021. Slán.